Good day, everyone. Hi, I'm Dave Vennergrund. I lead GDIT's AI practice, a vice president in AI and data insights. And I'm joined here to have an exciting panel with esteemed AI experts from our defense, intelligence, and federal civilian divisions. We're going to delve into AI in 2024 to hear what they think is going to happen in 2024. So before we go into the particular points of view from our divisions, I thought I would share an industry perspective on what 23 was like in AI and some industry predictions for 24 to set you guys up. Is that all right? All right, so forgive me as I read this list quickly. In 2023, looking back, this was the year of ChatGPT. I think we can all agree that excited everybody's intellect and scared some people too, right? So it was an exciting year. We had a huge improvement in those large language models from GPT-4, AWS-Q, Google Gemini, and many, many more. Generative AI made great strides in creative arts, generating film, video, audio, and images. AI in healthcare took off. AI in drug discovery lowered the costs of generating and evaluating new drugs and compounds. Climate change models were developed to help inform policy, better AI-driven models. Robotics created more efficient manufacturing plants. Ethical AI frameworks were finally addressed. It became part of the conversation, how to build and deploy responsible AI. Paired with that, regulation and policy development is coming at us now from executive orders and NIST and other regulatory boards, as well as our customers specifically. Quantum AI is starting to became a topic this year of interest. And then AI in education to help remediate education gaps that we may have seen due to the COVID interruptions, but also in better ways of meeting children and teaching them and helping them gather knowledge and research. So that was 23 in review. 24 predictions. Ethical and responsible use is still going to be up there, one of the most interesting concerns and areas of work. Continued advancements in the large language models, more advancements in the creative arts. And that has a positive and a negative. Those deep fakes are going to be even more deep and more fake, but we'll see those. And expansion in healthcare and biotech. And the last one's my favorite, AI in everyday applications. So with that, now we know what industry thinks. Let's see what does GDIT think in their divisions. We'll start with Matt. Could you share your vision for AI in 2024?
Matt Hayden with the Intelligence and Homeland Security Division. When we talk to agencies, what we're hearing is that they're looking to mature sort of that responsible use. And so closing out 23, they're looking at not just one tool, but a multitude of tools to be brought to bear. So when they say AI, they're saying, what are we using for detection within the vision aspect, within the text aspect? Where do we use it for cyber? And largely it is in that detect landscape. That's where they've seen the fastest way to leverage a lot of these technology. But when we start talking about generative, we start looking like, hey, how can we get this to generate code? How can we get this to generate synthetic code that we can use to make our detection stronger? Where can we really pivot to make our employees have the best tools at their disposal without any element of security to challenge the way we've locked down and the way we preserve risk across our enterprise and our landscape. So those are the kind of things they're looking to tee off into 24. What we're really looking to do is to see them get more advanced. For example, if you're an analyst, you're going to want someone to challenge your assertions. You can start to bring that to bear with a large language model that has access to some of these similar types of open source records to bring a counter narrative to that analyst to really make them stress test some of that things they're working on, whether that's in cyber or in the traditional space. And so we're going to see a lot more of that leveraging insights that are machine garnered and produced. And so that'll be an interesting way they produce a lot of that.
Excellent, man. I heard three really interesting ideas. The continued deployment of image classification, image detection, right, and processing imagery, wherever it might come from. The generative AI to help generate code. But I really liked what I heard about cybersecurity. Do you see an offense and a defensive capability there?
Absolutely. Right now we see a lot on the offense side, those better phishing message. They're trying to trick that human in the loop. But from the defensive side, it's really taking those shorthand of the number of cyber operators we have and scaling it. Yep. So they're looking to really be a force multiplier with the defensive techniques.
So it's clear that you're advancing with the state of the art, adopting and deploying good old fashioned AI, but also generative AI, yes, and looking at how you can protect our national security. That's fantastic. Brandon Bean is here with us today from Defense.
I'm Brandon Bean. I am a data scientist, and I'm also the AI and machine learning capability lead and solution architect within GDIT's Defense division.
Brandon, welcome. Same question to you. What do you see your customers driving towards in 2024 in AI and some of their challenges?
So defense is kind of a unique perspective. Within defense, there's a little bit, I won't say risk aversion, but they're more risk aware. So adoption can be a little bit slower. And so what we're really starting to see across the defense industrial base is more of an approach to start at the foundation. A lot of organizations are starting with good data management and governance to make themselves ready for AI. Mm-hmm. And they've kind of realized that, lagging behind industry for years has created some stopgaps that they have to overcome. And so what we're really getting at and we're really trying to push is this kind of emergence of these repeatable architectures that can support AI and distributed data governance. Beyond that, we're seeing a big push for requests for supporting the warfighter by reducing their workload, right? So taking care of some of those menial tasks that the warfighter used to have to do on top of their mission to free them up, right? And they're a valuable resource, so we want to free them up to do that mission. Right. Things such as, being able to automate certain processes, such as checking weapons out of arms rooms, identifying predictive maintenance that needs to happen when vehicles or aircraft come back off of mission, core general AI work. But from the generative side, we're really trying to see people take advantage, I should say, of all of the operational data that we've had over the last 25 to 30 years that we haven't really been able to get at previously. And so one of those use cases for all of that data is battlefield simulation, not only from the training aspect. So if we think of how we fought wars, in Operation Iraqi Freedom and Enduring Freedom, it was very counterinsurgency centric operations. Now we're moving back to more decisive action operations, and the data environment is a lot different. It gets back to kind of the Cold War narrative of force on force. And so now to make that pivot and transition, we have mountains of data that we can use to generate that, and hybrid scenarios as well. So we'll probably start to see a lot of requests for battlefield simulation, as well as extending those simulations into the command posts of the future, where we look to see more predictive analytics to identify adversarial capabilities and predict what's going to happen sooner so that we can launch better defenses.
Well, that's exciting. And it sounds like a challenge, too.
Yeah, it is. It's a big challenge.
So if we think about the classic problem that DoD's been dealing with is an ocean of data, right? And you need to bring some of it to bear to do some mission. You talked a moment ago about distributed data and analytics. Can you maybe dive into some solutions or approaches one might apply to not have to integrate everything so that you can get to that mission component, mission data element that you need?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things, across the industry that we've seen come out of older monolithic architectures and kind of their limitations with dealing with big data are the concepts of data mesh and data fabric. While they seem very similar, they're very diverse, right? And so what we're starting to see is at the Defense Department level, a big push to integrate distributed architectures that allow the domains to manage their data and their products. So that gets back to the data mesh architecture. And that's an integral architecture to support the DoD's vision for the CJAD C2 concept, really, with ensuring that we can connect with our mission partners in an agile and secure manner. Bringing those guys on is going to require distributed architectures where we can dynamically share certain products with them without having to re-architect our networks and other capabilities. So data mesh is really the way that will happen. So we see a big push coming in the next year for organizations, if they're not currently domain driven, to become domain driven so that they can actually leverage data mesh.
Cool. Great answer. So if you think about our defense portfolio, the construct that we've used in the past is back office systems, right, to keep people paid and make sure that their belongings move with them as they go from one place to the next. Systems that support the warfighter. and then the battlefield-facing systems, right? Do you see GDIT playing in all three of those areas? And do you see AI having a role in all three of those areas?
I do. Obviously at GDIT, we're a force multiplier. So we do play in those areas, and so does AI. For back office systems, I guess a little precursor, one of my predictions for 2024 is the emergence of more generative AI capabilities inside legacy or monolithic systems. So, adapting those systems to support generative AI on the back end and provide some type of a front-facing service that you can leverage for that. Think OUSD and their efforts for financial audits, right?
Sure.
Being able to use certain capabilities of generative AI to identify whether an organization has met the MICP program compliancy for their system compliance. Those could easily be leveraged based off the mountain of information that they've got. That transitions into the support that we see for the warfighter because those systems feed certain things for the warfighter, like their HR and administrative records, training, medical, and those are all ripe fields right now for AI, if not generative AI.
Yep.
And so we see that being a big multiplier coming forward, and GDIT will be right in the middle of that. But then we also need to extend that capability to the edge. Right. And that's where I think GDIT is excelling right now, is that we're working to get ahead of where we're at right now. So even in the generative AI space, we're trying to do what we can to squeeze as much as we can out of these models to ensure that we can push those to the edge on platform and minimize the limited compute that might be out there at the edge.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Yeah. We could carry on for an hour on this. AI in combat is, it's a hot topic, and maybe we'll just look at that at another time. Colleen, you're here from Federal Civilian, and your expertise in the chronic condition warehouse epidemiology, and you've been helping us on the Luna AI solution for years.
Hi, I'm Dr. Colleen Kummet. I'm an epidemiologist and data scientist consultant in GDIT's Federal Health Division.
What do you see GDIT doing in 24 with AI and generative AI in the FedCiv space?
Yeah, so in the federal health space, the cost of American healthcare is at the forefront of everyone's mind, including our customers, patients, providers, and stakeholders within health. Yeah. So I think AI has made strides in addressing and reducing costs across the healthcare system, and we anticipate that generative AI will have an impact to further reduce costs in some key ways. The first way being to reduce provider burden within the healthcare system, freeing up our doctors, our nurses to provide more hands-on patient care versus administrative burden that's a part of their everyday. So we have seen strides with AI to reduce provider burden with AI-assisted diagnoses, image analysis in the fields of dermatology, radiology, and other specialties as well. And we anticipate that generative AI will continue to make strides to reduce administrative burden and help with the diagnosis of very complex healthcare conditions such as behavioral health, where providers would have to analyze very complex patterns of patient behavior, which is very time-consuming, is very subjective. Having generative AI help with analyzing those very complex behavioral patterns within mental health to help with a diagnosis assistance in the clinic with the patient and very efficiently. So, looking at generative AI making continued strides in assisting diagnoses and reducing burden among healthcare providers.
Cool. Now, I know from our experiences in the past that the FedCiv team curates petabytes of data across many missions, CDC, NIH, CMS, and so on. FAA in moving into the flight and air safety. What is your advice for us going into the future about those data-centric programs and how we could bring AI to bear on those? Yeah,
so it's a combination of the legacy structured data that we have in the data warehouses for decades, joining that now with electronic health records and additional data from the edge, fitness watches and other tracking devices that patients want to help them manage their care, being able to securely and transmit that data and unify that with the structured, unstructured, and the edge data, all working together, again, to help provide high quality care for patients and reducing that provider burden.
Cool. I think you've heard from our panelists some really unique ideas tied to their missions, but also some really common overlaps, right? This reduction of administrative burden, or freeing up the warfighter to fight the war and not load the data or load the database. I'm sure you touched on it as well, but getting those mundane tasks automated or assisted, and that can be done with both traditional AI but also generative AI. As we look forward to the future, there's all these great mission applications that you've laid out. Is there one or two in each of your areas, so you can think this, there one or two that you think is going to be a real breakthrough for us? It doesn't have to be large, but it might be something either brand new or something very exciting or something that saves a lot of money. Could you think of one or two that you want to make a prediction on in Intel and Homeland Security?
I think the detection model is going to really leap off the page. I mean, we're going to see the ability to take in from both vision as well as data repositories, detection at speed. Yep. And that's across that scale is going to be amazing.
Yeah, good point. Data was at the core to all three of your conversations, bringing data together from the edge, these oceans of data. Very good. Yeah, good comment. How about you, Brandon? One or two things that you see defense breaking through, GDIT breaking through in this year?
So I think one of the big things in terms of defense will be, and it kind of, parlays to the IHS side as well, right? So the intelligence side is, utilizing AI or generative AI to support intelligence analysts. And that's a big thing, right? So they're dealing with a lot of information. And now as we kind of move the way that we collect and report intelligence, incorporating more open source capabilities, commercial data, it's going to be important to use generative AI to help sift through that data. Semantic search just won't do it anymore. And, the limitations that we've seen in semantic search through the prevalence of generative AI in terms of the outputs that you get is going to drive intelligence analytics to generative AI. And I think that'll be one of the big things we see. The other will be in training. So we've already seen a lot of stuff where organizations are looking to assist with using AI to develop training scenarios based off of that operational data that we talk about, as well as creating capabilities for the warfighter to study for, say, promotion tests and performance. And so those key things right there are assisting with things like the instructional design of developing those tests. So instead of having instructional designers or warfighters developing the tests that are going to test the performance of our airmen, our soldiers and seamen. Generative AI can actually do that by leveraging that corpus of data and generating multiple choice questions or a series of types of questions. And so I think that administrative burden that we keep going back to is really where we're going to start seeing what I kind of call the low-hanging fruit or the very low-risk adoption of AI. And I think that's where we're going to start to see stuff in the next year in defense is that really low-risk approach until we really start to catch up with policy.
Yeah, great. I would add to the conversation that education, knowledge, filling in knowledge gaps, learning how to do things, again, would span all of your areas. You can learn from a lot of different sources, but AI can assist that. Colleen, would you please share your vision for AI in health and federal civilian for the coming year?
Yeah, I think we will continue to gather data that then generative AI can be just an accelerator in understanding that data and using that data to provide high quality care to patients.
Okay.
I also see an opportunity in 2024 to reduce the time of new treatments from research to clinical implementation, assisted by generative AI. So network analysis is one of the main tools to develop drug efficacy and which needs to be determined before the clinical treatment can be used extensively in healthcare. And so we see it's a very extensive process to analyze all of the drug trials that need to be done to ensure safety and efficacy of drugs. This is an area where generative AI can use its power to, again, mine a lot of clinical trials, a lot of studies that have been done in different ways, asking different questions. But with generative AI, we have the power to look at that entire compendium of data on a particular drug treatment to determine safety and efficacy faster than the normal research procedures around drug treatments. So that acceleration, and I think, the pandemic showed us how quickly we can go from research to clinical implementation when we need to. And I think, building off the pandemic and the treatments that were developed through that period and adding the power of generative AI, again, to accelerate research into clinical practice.
Thank you, Colleen. And with that, I'll say thank you to the panel. Great mission stories. I'm really impressed with the amount of individual missions, but also the overlap between missions. And I know that as GDIT enters 2024, we'll be looking to apply AI to everything, and we'll see it not just in our mission space, but in our workspace and in our daily life. So looking forward to seeing if our predictions come true. And with that, thank you.